All right. Welcome back to the Graciously Broken podcast, The Recovery Life. This week is our 9th episode, and it is just me and Amanda Tornberg this week. Hey, girl.
What's up, Gail?
This podcast is going to be a little bit shorter, but we just wanted to share some thoughts and kind of just process through what grief looks like in recovery. We're going to not really go into detail about the loss that we have experienced and that many of our volunteers and obviously this person's family have experienced, just out of respect for her and her kids and her family. But we did get some really tragic news that one of our alumni has passed away. And so that's been kind of, I know for myself, it's been really kind of hard to process. It was really shocking. Obviously, I really didn't expect to get that news, and certainly not the way that it happened. And so I know that it has been difficult for, the volunteers who knew her and took her to and from appointments, and for our alumni who knew her, but even the girls who didn't know her, it kind of really shook them. And, so I just kind of wanted to take some time and give us space for us to process, but also hopefully whoever's listening can process with us. And so this conversation isn't going to be perfect. It's not really going to be probably full of insight or anything like that, but we did want to, again, just give space to grieve well. Her name is Evie, and she graduated from our program about 2.5 years ago. And so we just want to honor her and also respect her family and her privacy and their privacy. So I guess for you, Amanda, when you think about grief, particularly in regards to, this will apply to anyone and everyone, no matter what your dependency on what thing is. But particularly for people who are overcoming addiction to a substance, what, I don't know. I guess just there's no right way to grieve, but there is a right way in recovery, I think, to how can you set yourself up for success? Because I can imagine that grief for everyone can feel very overwhelming and dark and hard. And so, have you experienced grief before this? And if so, what has helped you stay sober?
I have. Evie is the second graduate that we've lost, and 2 and 5 years is just way more than what I want.
Yeah.
But I think one of the things that I'm noticing, what I've seen, just with what we've experienced with Evie, is we've seen people gather together and really allow themselves permission to grieve and to mourn.
Yeah.
And then there's people who use it as an excuse to go back. And I think for us in recovery, man, we're always looking for a reason, and so if we're not careful, we'll give ourselves permission to go back over it. And that would be far from what Evie would have wanted.
Yeah.
That is nothing that she would have wanted, or anyone else. I think if you lose your family, they're the ones who suffered with you in your addiction. I can't imagine that they would want you to use them as your justification. And so I think that's one thing we saw just over this last weekend is giving yourself permission to feel it.
Yeah.
We often don't want to feel the pain, and if we're not careful, we'll just shut down to it and pretend like it's not there, but it is there, and it's kind of working its way on the inside, and I'm really having its way with us. And so acknowledging it and being willing to talk about it and let yourself feel the pain. Feel it. It's okay,
I think even, for me, like when hard things happen in my life, my tendency is to shut down. It is to just kind of escape. And whether that's I'm going to binge watch this TV show, or I'm going to go eat a bunch of crap, or, I'm just going to be a recluse for a week. None of those things are healthy.
Right.
And not to say that alone time isn't good, because it can be good, but whenever it's the means to the end of I don't want to feel anything,
right.
It's toxic, and it doesn't, like you said, it doesn't process those emotions. It doesn't face the reality of what's going on. And so it can be very detrimental. I think grief is not something that you experience once.
Right.
And then once you've processed your feelings, okay, then you're good. And I heard someone say it's like it comes in waves.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not something, I think particularly with a death, because lots of different things cause grief, you know. It isn't, I heard another person say this, and it really put things in perspective for me. Her husband passed away, and eventually people were like, you're young, like, when are you going to move on? You know, he would want you to move on. And her thought, and those people mean well, and they're not bad people for saying that. But she's like, I'm never going to move on from him. And it wasn't in like a depressed, woe is me, I'm going to just sit in my misery. It was, I'm going to always love him. I'm going to always remember him. He's always going to be a part of me. But I can move forward.
Right.
Right. And so grieving well doesn't mean that you get, you cry enough tears to check off the box to say I've cried enough tears. It's, I'm going to process this emotion whenever it arises. I'm not going to let it control my life, but I'm going to process it when it comes up, and I'm going to keep going. I'm going to keep putting one foot in front of the other. And living life is okay.
Mm-hmm.
And it is what that person would want for you. But it doesn't mean that you move on from them. You just move forward with their memory with you.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that's actually really powerful because, yeah, I just think that provides a space for freedom too.
Right.
You know, we just recorded another podcast that will actually come out next week, and it's an interview with one of our graduates, Genesis, who we love dearly, and there were she says a lot of good things. You guys definitely want to tune in next week because it's a really just encouraging conversation. But I think one of the things that she kept talking about was she came to a point where she had to realize some things about her own self.
Right.
And then she had to say them out loud. And I think, scripture talks about the truth will set you free, and what's done in the dark will come to the light eventually. And whether that's a sin or just something that you're feeling, everything comes out at some point in some way.
Right.
And so when we say things, whether it's to a trusted pastor or a friend or sister or parent or husband or wife or whatever, there's freedom in that because then it's out there. It's not taking root in your mind, and it's not wreaking havoc with your emotions. And I think that it's easy for us to let grief do that. Right. And so grieving well is having a meeting at the alumni house to just say how you feel. Right. It's instead of turning back to the bottle or the needle or the pill, going to your sister and saying, I'm struggling with this. I'm sad. I'm just really sad, and I'm angry, or whatever that feeling is that the grief kind of brings up in you. Right. And just being honest about it.
I've heard someone say, whatever you don't talk about productively will come out destructively.
Ooh, that's really good.
You know, like if we don't deal with it in a productive way, it's going to come out.
Yeah.
And it's more likely going to be destructive in its way. But I think I was thinking about this. I think for some of our women and for me, I mean, it can hit pretty close to home.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just how I think sometimes we take for granted what we've been given.
Yeah.
The freedom that we have.
Yeah. And without sharing details of what happened to Evie, it wasn't necessarily a relapse that killed her, but it very much still affects the girls who knew her that came through our program and us as a staff. It solidifies how important our work is. And I think one thing that I really struggle with, when we lost Michael last summer, that was really hard. And losing Evie is really difficult and sad and just heartbreaking. For me personally, just being honest, it makes me feel like, man, what did we do wrong? How did we get here, And although it's always good to evaluate how we do things and try to be better and grow and learn, it's also important not to take ownership of things that you shouldn't take ownership
Right.
of, right? And I'm going to be sad. I'm going to be heartbroken. I'm going to wish that things didn't turn out the way that they did with Evie and Michael. But I do know in my heart that, number one, they knew Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
And number two, they did know that they were loved.
Mm-hmm.
And not just by us, but by so many people.
Right.
And my hope and my belief is that both of them are worshiping the Lord right now in heaven. And they have new bodies and new minds. And they are full of joy, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And that's my hope and prayer. And that kind of helps me process a little bit better. Even though it's hard, it's still, I mean, I have a ton of questions for God, you know, and I think, why? You know, that question that I'm sure all of us ask on a daily basis, like, why is this happening? Why did this happen? Why didn't you stop it? You know?
And we say that because we're still here.
Exactly.
And they are not saying that.
Yeah.
You know, they're happy and rejoicing in us because we miss them. Look, she got on to me again. But us, because we miss them. We're like, God, why would you do this? And,
Yeah.
But I'm sure that that's not their heart. They're
Yeah.
happy, like you said.
Yeah.
No more pain. No more of any of that.
Yeah.
It's a hope that you have in the midst of death, in the midst of
Right.
tragedy.
Yeah.
So,
Well, that's kind of all I have on my heart today. Obviously, this is a really short episode. And again, we really ask everybody who's listening to please pray for Evie's family. She has 4 kids and a fiance who are grieving. And if you know her or if you just want to come and support the family, what church is it in Marshall? We're going to look it up really fast.
I gotta find it.
Okay. I'll say that in a second. We are going to be posting, we did post on our Facebook. I guess this is coming out Friday. If you want to give a gift to Evie's kids, definitely just let us know and we'll get it to them, or we'll put you in contact with her fiance or other family members to do that. Did you find the church?
I did. It's Wesley United Methodist in Marshall.
Okay. Is it Wesley or
Wesley?
Wesley United Methodist in Marshall, Texas, at 10 a.m. Definitely, come sit with us. We'll have all of our residents and staff will be there, as well as some volunteers. So come join us. Keep praying. We love you guys. And if you have any thoughts or questions about grief or anything else you'd like for us to cover, please comment those down below. So we'll talk to you next week. Bye.
Bye.